Hi, thanks for joining us on another episode of Tomorrow's History. We're here in the city of St. Augustine in Florida, of course, which is the oldest city in America, founded in 1565 by the Spanish, of course. And I wanted to show, one of the things I wanted to show, you don't normally see this on YouTube. I wanted to show Avila Street, and it's just behind me, and we'll walk down it. And this is the oldest street in America, which I think is very historic. So I'm just going to pan around. You can see there's the bridge there in St. Augustine. And the water, of course, the old fort is over there. So St. Augustine was founded in 1565 by the Spanish, and it had a British occupation from 1763 to 83, I believe. And during that time, they burned everything down, the British. So what you see here, most of what you see here, is not from 1565. But the fort is, and sometimes you see some coquina walls that are from 1565. But this is Avila Street, or Avila Street, and this is the oldest street in America, which I think is just so, obviously so historic. And you see the plaque here. In Spanish times, this was the street of the Royal Hospital. It was renamed in 1923 in honor of the birthplace of Pedro Menendez de Avalos, founder of St. Augustine. So I love the old sign there, 8-foot clearance. I don't think many people drive down here anymore. It's a very narrow street. So this street dates from 1565, and I don't know if they would have had these bricks. My guess is they didn't. This was probably a dirt road or dirt street, but this is how the town started, the first settlement. So, and I love this. I love all the little histories that you read here on this site. Uncovered remains of the west wall of the 16th century church, Los Remedios, which served as the parish church of St. Augustine from 1572 until 1702, burned by Francis Drake in 1586 and rebuilt. Oh, so the English were here even in the 1500s. Yeah, the Spanish and the English, they were fighting over this spot in St. Augustine. So, yeah, it's really, I always find it interesting because, you probably think the oldest street in America would be in Boston, maybe. But no, it's right here. And I'm walking down it. So again, these structures would not have been here because from the history I read in the 1700s, the British burned pretty much everything down except the fort, because I guess the fort was made of the coquina shells, so they couldn't burn those. But and I love it. It's still a street where there's some life, some nice restaurants, tavern and bottle shop, peace pie, ice cream sandwiches. Walking down the oldest street in America. I'm just going to walk over here and then circle back and look at this structure. I always love this building. That looks really old. It looks like something you'd see in New Orleans. I'm going to continue walking down Avila Street, the oldest street in America. And because in the 1500s, the Pilgrims hadn't landed yet in Plymouth Rock. Another plaque here. The Segoy Kirby Smith House is one of the only 36 Spanish colonial houses remaining in St. Augustine. The house dates from the late 1700s. The site on which it is situated has been continuously occupied since the late 1500s. Wow. That's neat. So, it looks like this does date back from the 1700s, the structure here. I love the little alleyways here. I'm going to continue walking down a bit more. They have so many nice galleries here. Fine art, local artists. And then there's another pottery. And this is an historical house. I don't know if I can pronounce it, but it's a 225-year-old boarding house and museum. So that's an original structure. 225 years ago. Every room has a story. I love it. Kind of a mixture. I feel like I'm either in a mixture of Spain or maybe New Orleans when I'm here. Oh wow, so the two-story coquina house and detached kitchen was built for Spanish merchant Andres Jimenez circa 1798 for use as a general store, tavern, and family residence. Okay. And then it became a boarding house in the early 1800s. That's, yeah, one more look. That's a neat looking place. And I've been inside just to look at the lobby. It's nice. And this is a second Spanish colonial period, 1798. So when you see structures like this, many of them are original because it's after the British burned the town down. This looks original. This is part of the boarding house. I'll walk a little more. Love the little bed and breakfast places that you get here. So beautiful. Now when you see old walls like this, they could be original from the 1500s because from what I've read, they call it the coquina walls that are made of tiny little shells. You can see the shells there. That might be original from the 1500s because it's a coquina wall. Another museum up here. The Father Miguel O'Reilly Museum. This city does honor its past. Look at that. That looks like a nice hotel. Oh, and this was an archaeological site. That's neat. They found this is a 17th century well. Oh, let's take a look at that. Wow. There's a museum there. It must be an old Spanish priest maybe that lived here. All right. Built 1690 to 1763. Wow. I guess the coquina stone was quarried and cut to size. Oh, so that might be an original structure too. Well, original to 1690. All right, well, I'll take a close-up look at this wall again. I just love those shells. Oh, it's a windy day here in St. Augustine. And look at this old house. I love it. It looks crooked. It looks like it could be haunted. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the walk down the oldest street in America. I think you don't normally see that very often, the oldest street in America. Avila Street in St. Augustine. It's definitely worth a stroll. And St. Augustine is definitely worth the trip if you're in the area. But thanks for watching, and we'll be seeing ya. So the museum is not open right now, otherwise I'd go in, but so the existing tabby and coquina walls are circa 1691. Wow. And the different structures are a little bit later. I love it. So these walls I thought might be from the 1500s, but they're not. They're from 1691. I just love that. I have no idea how they did that. Building walls from tiny shells. Really is amazing. So they call these tabby and coquina walls. Wow, it's like a nice hotel. Just gonna zero in on these walls again. So beautiful. I'm gonna walk some more here. We can see the street from another angle. And look at from 1691, and they're a little crooked, but and a little cracked, but not bad. For, let's see, how many centuries? 17, 18, 4 centuries? Oh, I love it when you see the bigger shells there. That's just beautiful. Yeah, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. Oh, about 350 years. That's great. All right, thanks for joining us on another episode of Tomorrow's History. We're here in St. Augustine at the fort, which is the old Spanish fort. It's really the only structure here that's original from 1565. Everything else was pretty much burned down, except for a few walls in the city. Was burned down by the British, I believe, in the 1700s. So the entire structure was built by shells, tiny shells, which is unbelievable. So we're going to take a look around. It's a windy, cold day, but it's sunny, and we're having a good time in St. Augustine. It's such a beautiful place to visit. So this is the old Spanish fort. Spain, the Spanish came here, and as I said, 1565. I don't think this was finished in 1565, but the Spanish came here and settled the area then. They lost it to the British, I believe, for 20 years at the end of the 1700s. And then, so the British and the Spanish were always battling it out here. There's the river there. Such a pretty place. But what amazes me with this place is that this is where the Spanish soldiers lived. And this is also where, when the British burned the town down, they had several structures in the town, and all the townspeople had to come here and hide in the fort because this was the only place they could be safe when the British attacked in the 1700s. So, good place to put a fort. You're right on the water. You got your moat. You got your drawbridge. Kind of reminds me of the Tower of London. The structure kind of has that castle look. All made of tiny little shells. Just so amazing. So we're on the Matanzas River here, which translates to the river of blood, because the Spanish used to actually behead people and toss their remains into this river, the river of blood. Must have been a brutal place back in the 1500s and 1600s and 1700s when Spain came here and conquered this land. All right, we're walking into the fort. As I said, it reminds me of the Tower of London. And I'll just put a close-up on the walls there. You can see every piece is a tiny little shell.
Coquina.
Coquina. I think it's called coquina.
There's like a...
I think they got it from the river. The last defense. There's a plaque here. Oh, the most vulnerable part of the entrance of the fort is the entrance. Of course, they'd have to have a drawbridge. And then they've got some drawings here. Yeah, this would be the most vulnerable point. Really does remind me of castles and forts in Britain. Does remind me of the Tower of London on the Thames. Look at those walls. Yeah, you're not going to scale up those. That was probably their cooking and warmth. And they slept just like this on wood. The soldier's life. He may have smoked, played games with his friends in this room. Love it. More Donovan. Ooh, this is the prison. I always like to look at prisons. So that's the prison in there. Wow. Carcel prison. Wow. Interesting. I love these old walls. Wall there. There's a Spanish ship. Yeah, I think it's up here. Oh, so this is graffiti left by former soldiers. Wow. Oh yeah, I see the graffiti there. That's some old Spanish writing up there. So interesting. So now I'm in the middle of the fort. As I said, one of the most interesting things I read was when the British burned down the town, the civilians had to come here too, not just, so it wasn't just soldiers that lived here. Sometimes the civilians had to come, the Spanish civilians, to feel safe. Yeah, that's neat. I don't know how old that is. Oh, reading the canon. Every canon has its own story. I love it. That looks very old. Probably has the Spanish emblem on there. I'm not going to read everything in the video, but I just love how these walls are so old. Wow. Spanish Defense Network. Wow. Really looks like the Pentagon there. Look at this. Oh, wow. The powder room. Oh. This was built in 1675. It's one of the oldest rooms in the fort. Oh. Powder room, so it looks like this is where they stored their gunpowder. Wow. That's a tiny room. This is the room, they called it the King's Coffer, where in the 1700s the Spanish stored important documents and money. Wow. They must have had a lot to store here. This is interesting. So in 1821, the United States acquired Florida, and they renamed this Fort Marion. Interesting. Wow. Another wall with some graffiti. There's some good history. So this person, Father Francisco Lopez de Mendoza Grajales, he came here in 1565, and he celebrated the first Mass in what would become the United States' oldest parish. So that was over on the Avila Street. And then their mission was to provide services to the settlers and obviously convert the Indians. 1565, wow. The Spanish were here very early. That's another look at the center of the fort. I think I'll go up top now. I made it. There's the river again, the River of Blood. Wow. This was a good vantage point for the Spanish. It said down there that after this became part of Florida, they used this in the 1800s during the Civil War for soldiers. Wow. All right, I'm assuming they put their guns here. Looking down at what would have been the moat, and then the view over there. Pretty. So now I'm looking out towards the town of St. Augustine. As I said before, the British burned the town down in the 1700s. So when you walk in the town there, like those structures, they would not be original. I believe a lot of them were reconstructed in 1965. That's what it said when we were walking down St. George Street, which is right over there. That's the street everybody walks down to, have a coffee or get some candy or something. But I just love this. You could just imagine the Spanish up here. They really wanted Florida, Spain did. And the British did too. That's a nice view of the moat. Wow. All right, so the fort was built, they call it the Castillo de San Marcos, in the late 1600s. So basically it took the Spanish about 100 years before they built this fort. Star-shaped forts used an obstacle course of defenses. Diamond-shaped protruding corners called bastions created crossfire to repel the enemy. That's a nice drawing there. You can see them there. The Castillo, the fort design has stood the test of time despite attacks. The Castillo was never conquered. Wow. So I've been referenced that the English burnt the town down. The English took over the town in the late 1700s, but here there's some good histories. The Spanish soldiers watch in horror as English troops set fire to their homes. They are helpless. The drawbridges are up. The soldier settlers and their families are sheltered within the crowded fortress. Except for free rooms to house the guards on duty, the fort has no living quarters. Wow. So during the nearly 2-month-long siege in 1702, the English failed to conquer the Castillo, but they left St. Augustine in ashes. That's so, I mean, if they hadn't done that, maybe a lot of the structures from the 1500s and 1600s would still be around. After the siege, the determined Spanish rebuilt their homes and added more defenses. Wow, that must have been sad. So in 1702, the Spanish here had to huddle in the fort and watch the British burn down the town of St. Augustine. But they never burned down the fort. I mean, how could you? I don't think you're gonna burn that. I'll walk over here. I love that information there. Walking along the coquina wall. This is so great. Little peephole there. This fort is absolutely amazing. All right, well, I think I'm going to end the tour here. Thanks for watching the narration of the fort, which was, whoa, it's a sunny day, which was built in the late 1600s after the Spanish had been here about 100 years, arriving in 1565. So the British conquered the town, or they burnt the town down, but they didn't burn the fort down. It's still here in all its glory. Well, that was fun. Thanks for watching, and like my button says, we'll be seeing ya.